As a part of your GATE Biotechnology 2021 preparation, the first topic that we are about to discuss is biochemistry. And this is a very important and an interesting topic. Uh, and it is very important in terms of your exam because almost 7 questions on an average are asked from this particular topic. If you look at the various GATE question papers over the years from 2011 to 2020, you will see that on an average, 7 questions are being asked from biochemistry. And the other reason why biochemistry is important is it helps you understand the various biochemical reactions that are occurring in your body. Okay, so for these two reasons, it's very important to learn and understand biochemistry. Now, before actually jumping into the topic, I want to introduce you to this Greek physician, and his name is Hippocrates. I'm sure you must have heard of him. And this is his famous quote, "We are what we eat." In a way, this actually summarizes the entire concept of biochemistry. Okay, whatever we are about to learn in biochemistry, this quote actually summarizes that. So basically what he is saying is, whether it is the cells of your body or your bones, whatever it is there in your body or your skin, whatever it is, they are all actually made of what we eat. So this is what he's essentially saying. Not just that, how energetic you are or how weak you are, that also depends on what we eat. So if you can understand how what we eat is actually getting converted into your cells or the various components of your body, you are basically understanding the topic of biochemistry. So if you can actually understand how what we eat is generating the energy that we need to survive or perform activities, we are in the process of understanding the topic of biochemistry. So this quote essentially summarizes uh, the essence of biochemistry in a way. Now, uh, this quote also emphasizes the importance of food in our life. Okay, so the food we eat is what we are, in other words. Okay, so food is the most essential component of human life. So if I ask you, what would you like to have for breakfast and offered you this menu, you may choose any one of the items here, but they're all essentially made of the same kind of molecules. For instance, let's take this. Okay, let's say that's your favorite breakfast. Now, the puri here are made up of basically flour, your maida, and this is predominantly in terms of biochemistry, this is nothing but your carbohydrates. And of course, we are actually frying them in oil. So you will also have oil, which is nothing but lipids. And we have chana here. So chana or the chickpeas are predominantly your protein. And of course, in addition to protein, you have a lot of vitamins here. Okay, so whatever you take your paratha, or essentially all of them will have the same components in them. Okay, and if you take your chana curry, it has tomato in it, and this tomato basically have a lot of nucleic acids. Okay, so whatever you are taking, whatever you are eating, they all have essentially the same kind of biomolecules. These are what we call the biomolecules. Okay, now let's say you ate your puri, and let's see what happens to this, the flour or the carbohydrate component of the puris that you are eating. Okay, now, so basically you ate your puri, it is actually moving through your digestive system. It reaches the stomach, where the stomach produces lots of HCl, and with the churning movements, the food pieces are broken down further. Okay, and then ultimately the digested food, it's not completely digested. With the churning movements, it's basically broken down into smaller pieces. The actual digestion happens in your small intestine. Once the food enters your small intestine, this is where you have the enzymes. The various enzymes, of course, you have some enzymes being produced even in the stomach, but predominantly most of the enzymes are produced in your small intestine. And these enzymes, for instance, in the example that we just discussed, we have carbohydrate. So this is coming from your puri. Okay. So this carbohydrate, which is coming from your puri, is actually broken down to your simple sugars, okay, or your monosaccharides. Okay, and you have some disaccharides as well. So we started off with puris, and the puri had carbohydrates, and these carbohydrates are one type of biomolecule. This is a type of biomolecule. This carbohydrate was then digested by the enzymes. These carbohydrates were then broken down by the enzymes to simple sugars or monosaccharides. What happens then? Well, the next step is you have several cells in your intestine. Okay, let's see. So the food is actually now passing through the small intestine, the digested food, and you basically have the intestine is actually made up of several cells like this. The intestinal wall is actually made up of several cells like this. So the food which is digested here has to now enter the cells, and then you have the blood vessel linings here. So from the food, from here, it enters the blood vessels. Okay, so the various food particles, okay, which are now digested, are passing through the cells. So kind of transport is happening. So they are being transported from the intestine through the cells into the blood. Okay, they're being transported through the cells into the blood. Now, what next? The blood is carried to the various parts of the body, right? And the food particles, or the digested food particles, for instance, the simple sugars, which we discussed in the earlier examples, are now being carried to various parts of the body, the simple sugars, by the blood to the various cells of the body. Okay, the various cells of the body. Now what happens? Each and every cell has a membrane. Each and every cell has a membrane, cell membrane. Okay, so the simple sugars are carried by the blood to the various cells in the body, and each and every cell has a membrane. Now the simple sugars have the task of passing through the membrane and entering the cell. Okay, they have to pass through the membrane and enter the cell. Once they enter the cell, they are broken down. Okay, they are broken down. Why are they broken down? They are broken down to release energy. Okay, so this process of breaking them down is what we call metabolism. Okay, and finally, energy is released from these broken components of the sugars, and this, for releasing the energy, we have separate mechanisms. Some mechanisms like the electron transport chain. So these are the various events that occur starting with you having a puri. So the puri has many different biomolecules, and if you take one biomolecule like a carbohydrate, It will be first digested by the enzymes and then digested to simple sugars by the enzymes. And these simple sugars are then carried to various parts of the body by the blood. And each of these cells have a membrane. So the sugars have to now cross the membrane and enter the cell. And inside the cell, they undergo metabolism. And once they are broken down to smaller pieces, these pieces are then used to release energy. Okay, so this entire process, if you can understand, this basically summarizes the entire syllabus of biochemistry you have as a part of GATE 2021. Okay, GATE Biotechnology 2021. Okay, see, I'll just show you the syllabus once. You see here, we're starting with biomolecules. So basically, this is where we discuss the carbohydrates, the lipids, the proteins, and nucleic acids. And of course, we'll even discuss the other components like your vitamins here. Okay, and then these foods are entering your digestive system, and then you have the role of enzymes. These enzymes are breaking them down into simpler molecules, and we'll look at the various kinds of enzymes in classification, the behavior of enzymes, the mechanism in which they act, or the mechanism by which they actually break them down into simpler pieces. And then we look at the cell membranes, because ultimately these broken pieces are carried by the blood to the various cells which have membranes. So we look at the biological membranes, the structure of the membrane, and how the food materials are actually transported across these membranes. Okay, and then once they cross the membranes and enter the cell, how these are actually metabolized. Okay, that's the next part. How the carbohydrates are metabolized, how the lipids are metabolized, how the amino acids, which are the broken down products of proteins, metabolized, and then how the nucleic acids are metabolized. Now, as a part of this metabolism, the end goal is to release energy. And for releasing energy, you have the respiration process. So how the food that we eat is actually broken down to release energy is what we call respiration. So the entire process is what we call respiration. And the process of releasing energy involves this part, the electron transport chain. Okay, we'll discuss in detail when we get here. And then the final topic in here is bioenergetics. Basically, how much energy is produced at the various steps of metabolism, and how much energy is actually produced by carbohydrates, how much energy is produced by lipids, things of that sort will be discussed here under bioenergetics. And of course, we have a standalone topic, which is photosynthesis. And under photosynthesis, basically what we'll discuss is how the plants are able to make their own food and how they derive their energy from the food that they make. So these are the various topics that we'll cover as a part of the biochemistry lecture series.